Hello everybody and welcome back to RP-1. As you may note from the title, we are going to be focusing on the X-Plane program today. We have 2 launches that we need to take care of, and then we'll be able to collect enough money, reputation, and science to keep pursuing the Heavy Satellites program in the next episode. So if you're looking forward to the rockets more than the planes, just hold on and we'll be doing that next. But if you're interested in the planes, then this is the episode for you. So in the last episode, because of the fact that we got a heavy satellite into orbit, we now have a new leader to appoint. I'm just gonna skip forward. We're gonna pick Yuri Gagarin, the first human being in space, and but you can look at all the different leaders here. But we're gonna mainly take him because of his bonus to our pilots. They'll be with us for a lot longer before they retire, and their salaries are going to be cheaper, so it's nice. It's going to do us well. But yeah, after looking through all of our different options, Yuri is going to be our person. So as you see, 25% time until crew retirement, the 5% crew training, and what's the negative is, the crew gets paid a little bit more, so 5% negative funds for crew salary. But there we go. We're going to appoint him, and we have all of our leaders appointed and our contracts now filled. So it is time to start moving on towards our X-planes. So the stratospheric research I'm not going to be able to do because it's 22 kilometers altitude, and we just can't reach that with the cockpit that we have currently. So we're going to have to hold off on that. Mach 2 supersonic is doable, but we don't have a jet plane capable of doing it, so that is what we're going to focus on building today. So let's go ahead and grab that one. And as you see, the optional one is no longer available to us. And the optional one is actually less speed. And like I mentioned, the jet plane we have can't currently complete that contract. So we're actually going to take the optional one first before the required one, because if we can make it to 400 meters per second, that'll be a good test of our flight. But we also are going to be working on getting the science necessary for better X-plane engines and whatnot. So we'll be able to handle the required contract then. I put in some science, supersonic flight science to be exact, but it's not going to, none of those, the crew report, the telemetry, nor the super science, are actually going to be able to run, because those only run when you're above 40 kilometers. And like I mentioned before, we don't have the ability to go above 16 kilometers currently. So, but we'll be unlocking those soon enough. But anyways, we are now going to start focus on our build. This is a jet plane, not a rocket plane, so we are going to need to make it a little bit different than we did our XP1. So I decided, after a lot of testing, I did a lot of test flights off camera, and ended up starting from scratch. So that's where we started here. No need to waste your time with the stuff that didn't work. But I decided for this plane, we're actually going to have 2 engines attached to the wing, with this little bit of a wing in between to kind of space them out a little bit. But this was the design that I wanted to play around with. I wanted more power. We're already using the most advanced engines that we possibly can, with the highest configuration that we possibly can, just to really powerhouse through this program with a high-powered plane. And so with my single engine jet plane attempts, I was not succeeding as easily as I wanted to. And so I feel like even if we were to accept what we had achieved with the single jet engine, it wouldn't be long until that is no longer powerful enough to achieve our goals. And so I want something that is right out the gate strong enough to last a couple different contracts while we wait for our science to come through. So that is where this came from. As I'm building this, I had no idea if this is going to work, if it's going to be overkill. Potentially too heavy. Having that much extra mass on the craft could make flying a bit of a challenge, but we will see that soon enough in the test flight. I have these stock wings on here, stock wings and stock lifting surfaces, because I had spent so much time by this point, a couple hours designing and test flying planes and readjusting the wings and doing all sorts of stuff that you have to do with a plane. So I had gotten frustrated. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to deal with stock wings. I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure they're probably not fine. Let me know in the comments below just how awful it is to use stock wings in RSS, RO. Yeah, and especially don't look now, because I'm about to do something very silly by putting these tail fins and trying to act as wings themselves. I was trying to lower the mass as much as possible, so I was thinking maybe tiny wings could work, but no, that's a terrible idea. I don't think I'm going to get rid of them in this turnaround. What happened here was I had forgotten to put 2 engines, or no, this is what's happening now, is I didn't put 2 engines on there. You see, I only have the left one, and I'm not going to notice that until I test fly it right now. But yeah, those here's me putting the double engine back on. But yeah, those little tail fins are just not going to work, so we will be putting actual wings on there soon enough. But let's go ahead and test flight once again, take those off, and in favor of just something else. And we're going to do this kind of flat wing style. We're not doing too much maneuvering, and so all we really need to do is kind of glide up and then glide back down. And in the last test flight, it worked out just as well as I would have wanted, so it's time to go ahead and paint the plane. I don't have too many options. The stock wings, I don't think, have the ability to be colored. Let me know if they do. Maybe I just missed it. But so we are just going to deal with a white jet plane, which is fine because we're doing the army green for our X-plane, so this will differentiate it well enough. So this is the JP-1A, and that is because we never actually got the JP-1 out. We had saved it, test flown it, and whatever, but we wanted to separate it well enough. But this isn't ready to be called the JP-2 because we have more engine upgrades that we can do soon, and so I think that will be worthy of a JP-2, having the second configuration of the engine. So that is good. Anyways, we are back out here at the KSC. And as we take a look at our KCT Space Center Management window, we are kind of struggling with our science. It's going to take a year just to get the entry, descent, and landing. And that'll give us heat shields, which will be good for our rocket program. But currently, it is taking way too long to build. So we're going to need to readjust our science a little bit. So let's head into the R&D building, and we're going to focus our science gains on our planes, because that'll give us a higher altitude that we can launch from in our air launches as well, both testing and in the real game. So as we see here, it will allow us to launch from 13.5 kilometers above, which will be much better for our engines because they are more efficient at higher altitude. I'm also picking up solid rocket engines, but we're not really going to be using very much of that, but I do want to keep up the science gains on those. So So now let's go ahead and look at our contracts. Just one more time to make sure that we can satisfy everything. So we're going to need 625 meters for the Mach 2, but we only need 400 and some odd for the optional. So let's go ahead, hop into the space plane hangar, and we are going to test out with the better engine, because we're going to be unlocking that in the next science node. So we're going to go ahead and test this out, see how it'll run as a JP2 and whether or not it will be able to handle going 625 meters per second. And I'm not going to spoil how that test flight went, because that's going to be proved in another episode. But for now, all we need to know is that the JP1A is going to be good enough for the optional. So we are going to get Heider Weber once again back in the classroom so she can get trained up on the mission. We are first going to do the X-plane flight, and that is the mission from the previous episode to reach 20 kilometers in a crewed vessel. And so we're going to attempt that first, and then we're going to get onto the jet plane Mach 2 optional after that. So let's go ahead and time warp our way to her finishing the class, getting the mission ready, and let's prep for air launch and then launch. So I'm just going to time warp ahead. We are now ready to air launch, so let's go ahead. I'm going to change this distance a little bit. Coming in at 141 was just a little close in my testing, so I'm going to change it to 175. So let's go ahead and launch that at the max altitude we can. Pack Heider Weber up with a chute, and we're going to find ourselves on the launch pad, launching in 5 seconds. So let's get ourselves ready, and let's get in the air. So our next plane flight, just like the previous one, just going a little higher this time, a little faster. So we got our atmospheric autopilot on, tilting our way up, get ourselves a little height. As you see here, we're only air launched at about 7 kilometers above the surface, and that's not nearly efficient enough. We need to get ourselves higher. So we're gonna plot in 18 kilometers into our cruise flight controller, turn it on, and let the plane take control. Got almost 2 minutes of fuel remaining. Kind of have to do this fast. The X-planes are a little more stressful than the jet planes, but still both fun. I'm going to be leaving both flights unedited. Had a pretty good time flying them, and we do some stuff, so just figure we'll take the time to enjoy. Cruise flight is starting to level ourselves out as our apoapsis approaches 18 kilometers. But we do need to reach 20 kilometers, and we also have to reach 550 meters per second at some point between 10 and 20. And currently we're at 17, and we just passed 550 meters, so that part of the mission has been satisfied. I'm tilting up just a little bit, trying to bring my apoapsis. I just need to cross. I don't need to fly there for any given amount of time. I just need to reach the 20,000, and there we go. Alright, so we can put standard fly-by-wire back on and then just burn the last 20 seconds of our fuel, and then try to glide our way back to the KSC runway. Got 5 seconds left. And cut off. How you doing, Heidi? Happy to be up in the air once again? I'm sure of it. Kerbal pilots, this is their natural habitat. But anyways, we're going to time warp our way, or physics warp our way forward as we gently glide down slightly, just 10 degrees below the horizon. Beautiful day for a flight. Got a pretty good approach. We are a little bit higher than I would have wanted, and we are definitely going faster than we need to for landing. However, we're gonna have to strike the balance between the two until we get there. Out of time warp, and trying to line myself up for the approach. Looking pretty good. Gonna give it a little bit of yaw to kind of align myself. I didn't need this many windows up on the screen. I could have closed them all and had a much better view as I approached. I'll try to remember to do that next time. Not next flight, because I didn't do it, but in the next episode. Alright, looking pretty good. However, Heidi's face is less than pleased because she realizes that we're still coming in at about 200 meters per second, which is way too fast. So we're gonna bounce off the runway, and then we start to panic a little bit, and so we go ahead and stage our chutes to slow down. We start to tilt off, stage the second pair, and have a momentary heart attack. But thankfully, Heider Weber is alive once again. Another less than stellar landing from her, but she proves her mettle every time. So, back again at the KSC, the XP2 is being recovered, but it will need to be fixed before it can fly. We do have a few things now in the queue. You can see the DR6000 Quicksilver 1 is 62% done, and that is the rocket that we'll be featuring in the next episode. So, hope you look forward to that as well. But now we need to focus on our second flight of the episode, and that is the jet plane flight. Let's go ahead and save game. I typically cut out the save times that I do whenever I save. I just, feel it's not necessarily necessary, but I do want to point out that it is, when you're playing this game, it is very important to save between each mission because you just never know. So now I'm going to spend much longer than appropriate trying to get Heider Weber into a classroom, even though I forget that she can't just immediately jump onto another mission. So as I go through all of those, none of them are available for her. So I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe I need to skip ahead a little bit. I need to give her some time. But yeah, once again, all she can be trained for is the X1 mission, and then I realize, oh, we need a jet plane mission, not the X-plane mission. So I basically just start to assume that, oh, well, she's trained up, there's no need to put her back in the classroom, so we're going to save yet again, just because in case I am incorrect, I'd like to come back to this point and figure it out. But we're going to time warp our way, we're going to launch our plane. I hit mount to air carrier and then let it spend the time to do that. I go ahead and put in the max parameters. I'm going to change the distance a little bit, 350, and then we're going to launch. And the 350 is from my test flights. I found that is the appropriate distance. But it tells us no astronauts, no pilots are available. And that's because none of them have been trained. And so as I come back here to the training options, none are available. So, well, I guess Heidi was available right there. I just noticed that right now. We could have trained her in the jet planes. So, yeah. Well, it's good to know. You see things in hindsight that you may miss in the moment. But nonetheless, I'm thinking, well, she's not able to fly this. I don't know what I can do. So we decided to hire ourselves another pilot instead. So we are going to grab ourselves Stuart Kelly. He's got a high courage rate and a relatively low stupidity rate, but just enough to do the daring maneuvers that we need for him. So let's go ahead and get him into the classroom. And unfortunately, he's going to need both the proficiency training and the mission training. So that is a little more time spent, but it will be worth it. And we're probably going to want a second pilot soon enough. If we start doing crewed rocket missions, then we're going to want to be able to select. We want a selection of pilots that we can choose. I'm grabbing the polar orbit satellite right now because I'm going to want to start to combine my missions in that area. So I just wanted to show you that I'm grabbing it, and we're going to try for that soon enough. But let's go ahead and air launch. Let's get Stuart Kelly in the seat with a parachute, and let's get on the launch pad. Or the runway, excuse me. So we go ahead and get him in the RP-1, and we're going to quickly get ourselves situated so we can be ready when we get dropped from the plane into the air. We've got our atmospheric autopilot already running, our engines on, and we are ready to fly. So this is Stuart's first flight, and hopefully it goes well. Our engines come up to speed. We get the red plume coming out. And we're going to need to lift ourselves up to a higher altitude once again because we're going to want our engines to perform at the best efficiency that they can. And the higher the altitude, the more efficient. Relatively. We've got 14 minutes of flight time. We've got that much fuel. We could have actually limited the fuel even more, which would have lowered our weight, but nonetheless, it's good enough. So I talked straight through it, but I put up the mission parameters there. We need to hold between 400 and 460 in a level flight. It doesn't require us to be at any particular altitude, but we are going to want to go to about anywhere between 13 and 18 kilometers. Actually, 13 and 16 and a half kilometers, because I believe that might be the limit on this cockpit. And we're just going to push ourselves up. These are some pretty powerful engines, and having two of them really helps to really helps the thrust to weight ratio on this. We're at 1.47, which is pretty great, even for a plane. So we're going to change our altitude to 13,500. Which we are actually higher than that at the moment, so it brought us down a little bit. But by plotting it into the cruise flight controller, it allows us to hold stable and steady in our flight, which is important because we need our rate of climb to be very stable. So that 645 was left over from the the test flight where we tested the JP2 to see if it could handle that, and I'm excited to show you that one. And all the JP2 is a different configuration on the engine. That's why I like picking engines that have a lot of configurations. Even if it's not the most powerful engine available, by it having a lot of configurations gives me a lot of room to upgrade it, and I like that. Real fast, I'm just playing around with the camera tools. I had some time to go before we were ready for the mission to take hold, and so I'm like, oh, I'll try to set up a cool shot. I hadn't yet thought about the fact of like, oh, I'm probably just gonna leave this mission unedited, so I did initially intend to cut out this footage, but nonetheless, you can see us actually going over our targeted speed now. We are now going too fast to complete the mission, but we'll figure that out soon enough. So this is what I created. I'm still trying to get the hang of camera tools. When I can, I'll probably try to integrate it a little bit more, get some more cinematic shots. But yeah, that was my little circle around the plane. So now I see that we're going 500 meters per second, so let's go ahead and attach the speed control to our autopilot. And that will bring us down to 430 meters per second, which is midway between our target. And now the engines are kicking back on again now that it has slowed down enough. And it's going to take a few seconds before they get up to speed. And so now we're heading back to 400 meters per second, and or 430, and once we get there, the engines will control the throttle. So now all we need to do is hold this for the next 2 minutes and 48 seconds. And considering we have 7.5 minutes of fuel remaining, I don't foresee that being a problem. We will, however, have to keep an eye on our engine temperature. So yeah, here's the camera move that I tried to do. I think it's a decent move. Really, having it stop directly behind the plane like that really makes it feel like you're starting the video game. You're playing a flight game, and that is the loading screen. Did any of you play Sky Odyssey? An old game for PS2. It was a lot of fun. It was when I started doing the Kerbal planes in stock KSP and RP-1 and all that. It really made me long for that game. Let me know in the comments if any of you played that back in the day. Oh, we have a minute and a half left to go on our mission. Our throttle just kicking on, kicking off, just to keep us steady. It's important to not make your speed control 400 even, because as you see here, we are now below 430. So if you were to make it 400, you'd constantly be dropping out of the mission parameters, and then you would have to start the the timer over and over again. So if you're doing one of these type of keep your speed between this and this, always try to put it halfway, or a little bit more than halfway. And nothing much to really talk about, just a calm flight. I could have cut this a little sooner, but there were enough things to talk about in the beginning of it that I felt might as well just keep the whole footage of the flight. We only got 29 seconds left. We can start to see the Cape approaching, and it's actually a relatively cloudless day, so we have a pretty good view of our approach. And with 10 seconds remaining, we're going to go ahead and put that countdown right here at the top. 3, 2, 1. And mission successful. All we need to do now is land and splash down anywhere. We'll get extra reputation if we succeed in landing on the runway, or near the runway. Stuart Kelly does a little dance of victory and gets ready to turn off the autopilot and come on home. Our engine temperature is climbing, which isn't great. So we're going to kind of kill some of our speed and not go full throttle right now. Try to bring that down a little bit. I go to try to auto point to my waypoint, but apparently it was reading something completely different than what I was imagining it was going to read. So quickly turn that off and we'll just point ourselves there manually. In fact, we can get rid of the cruise flight controller entirely and just go off of the atmospheric autopilot. If you don't have the atmospheric autopilot mod in your mod list, regardless of RP-1 or regular Kerbal, I highly recommend it if you're flying planes. It is so much better than the SAS. You have so much more control, and you won't find yourself constantly having to remain on the keyboard to keep your plane level. So, highly recommend it if you play with mods. So we're going to tilt our way. We've got 2 minutes of fuel remaining. So it turns out that the 14 minutes that we started with was an appropriate amount after all. We're just going to burn full throttle until we utilize the last of it. We're going to want to make sure that we keep in the air. However, our engine temperature is starting to rise a little concerningly, so we kill our throttle entirely and then it starts to cool down. We're going to glide most of the way back in. We only have a minute left of fuel, so let's go ahead and utilize that as best as possible without exploding our plane. "30 seconds of fuel remaining. Over half of the gauge is filled on our engine temperature. 15 seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. And engine cutoff. We successfully kept them from exploding, which is always a good thing. So now all that's left to do is glide our way in and come on home for a landing. We are a little bit farther back than I would have wanted. We've got 4.5 minutes to the runway and climbing, and we are now below 10,000 meters, so it may not be possible to fully land on the runway. So we are going to have to play by ear and figure out the best way to keep Stuart alive. It's all about the right angle of attack right now. We want to point ourselves low enough that we are indeed heading down, but also high enough that we don't end early. We also need to maintain as much altitude as we can until we can get there. So, Stuart, prepare yourself for anything. Because the worst thing that we could do is hire a pilot and kill them on their first flight. I have physics warp on right now as I approach, because all I need to do is just hold myself level. But once we start getting to the first shores of the island, we'll be killing that time warp. Physics warp. It is an important distinction. I'm bringing up the waypoint manager here because I would like to, as I approach, I'd like to add a different waypoint for the runway. I'd like to have the waypoint at the front of the runway rather than the back. It'll make for lining up a bit easier. So we're gonna add a waypoint, name it runway start, and as soon as we hit the start of the runway, we're gonna hit apply, and that will place the waypoint appropriately. But I am starting to realize that with the 2 engines, this thing drops like a stone once it's no longer powered. We're only going 125 meters per second, and we are starting to drop. We need to figure out how to land this as best as possible, especially considering I realize we don't have any parachutes on this. No parachutes for Stuart. We can have him eject and have him use his personal parachute, but then we would fail the mission. So we are going to try to dump this in the drink as safely as possible. Stuart, I have faith in you. You need to have faith in yourself. Be a pilot in Kerbal. And that's how Kerbal pilots do it. With a little bit of bravery, a little bit of stupidity, and a lot of luck. But anyways, that successfully is a landing. Because we can splash down, so we can call this. Let's go ahead and get our vessel recovered to the warehouse so we can launch it in the next episode for the next mission. But yeah, 54 days added onto Stuart Kelly's retirement date. We got a little bit of science from that. I just want to take a quick second to thank the person in the comments who told me how to fix the funky chicken, and we may be seeing that one again shortly. But thank you for letting me know. Actually, thank you for everyone commenting on this RP-1 series. It is definitely a difficult way to play Kerbal. It's a type of Kerbal that requires homework, and so by y'all commenting and letting me know certain aspects about, like, you know, the engine's burn time or the fact of how to fix a plane that we have stored, all the tips and tricks, thank you so much. They are making this game a bit easier, and I appreciate that, because then that makes it easier and more fun to bring you more missions, more content. So thank you again. And if you have tips and tricks, even if you think that they're obvious ones, or maybe that I already know, but let me know. Who knows? I may have heard it for the first time from you, so always appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and grab the stratospheric research contract, because pretty soon we'll have the science available and the cockpit that can handle such a high flight. We do have 8.8 science. Unfortunately, we can't unlock what it is that we want to unlock, because we have to unlock the satellite era electrics first, and the unlocking that is going to be crucial, because once we can get the satellite era science, then we can really start maximizing each launch. But that will be in the next episode. We're going to do another heavy satellite launch, but this time for the sake of science, not for the sake of any particular mission. But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more RP-1. If you did, consider joining our channel members. Think about subscribing, drop me a like, let me know your thoughts, and I will see you all on the next one. Take care.